My legal name is Izola Nichols. That's how I grew up here. My name is Billie Hayman. And we now live back in Texarkana. Most of my life we lived in Houston, but just thinking about growing up in Dice, and like I stated a little bit, was the fact that Louise pretty much took care of us. But we moved to the Dice colony. I was 6 months old. So we moved here probably in April of '43. And we lived on, I think, what they call the rehab. Over there, Daddy sharecropped that first year. And then he bought the 40 acres from a cousin-in-law. I don't remember their names, but we moved there, and I was just a little tight. But I remember growing up with the ditch behind us in the cotton fields, and as the next two girls were born, basically we stayed in the cotton field. Daddy always, whoever was the youngest, Daddy would pull on his cotton sack as we went up and down the rows, and taking a bale of cotton to the gin was one of those treats, because sometimes we could go to the gin with Daddy. And it was just, real neat. We would work from Monday through Saturday at lunch. And in the summertime, in the fall, spring into the summer, we would hoe cotton. We'd get out of school. We'd have to go to school in July and August. And then we'd be out in September and October to pick cotton. And so anyway, we would, on Saturday though, we always quit around lunchtime. Come in and we'd all come to center. And one of the things our younger sister was saying, she said she remembered when we'd come, we'd be in the back of the old truck, and she'd say, there's center, And it was a big deal because, we just didn't run to town. Saturday afternoon was the thing. Sometimes we might go to a movie, but not very, although then it was called a show. Was not very often that we could do that. But the three younger ones, the two younger ones were actually born here. And the general store, I think they called it something else, but we just knew it was center. But it's where they had all of the groceries, material, anything you'd want. And we'd go there. Daddy'd give us 15 cents every Saturday. We'd get 15 cents to spend. And, and that was a lot of money. And you're talking about that many years ago. And we'd run through the store, as little girls will. And I remember the proprietor one time asked Mama, she said, do those girls always play that good together? And Mama said, for the most part. And living on the ditch, we lived on ditch 40, and the Lintons were our very best friends. Either they were at our house on Sunday after church, or we were at their house. And Mom and Daddy got saved at Dice while we lived here. So they were real faithful. And like I said, we'd spend a lot of time with them.
And that was the Baptist church?
Baptist church, yeah. The Lintons were, their family was pretty much like ours, and a lot of the things that we did together. And that was our entertainment. Like Louis said, there was not a lot of entertainment outside. Unlike today, we made our own entertainment. Our entertainment might be, I don't know where we found this tire, but us three younger girls and the boys, it had the handles like this, and just one great big, it looked like a small airplane tire is what it looked like. We'd get on that thing and we ran with that thing all over that property. Another thing that we did for fun was walk the barrel. I think they have a derivative of that today, but we'd walk on that barrel to see who could stay on that barrel the longest, And as it's rolling, so,
yeah.
All right. And we made our own toys, the jump board. All right, we just got we called them planks. I don't know if anybody knows what a plank is these days, but we'd put something in the middle, not too high off the ground, and one on one end and one on the other. And this one would jump and bounce this one in the air. This one would come down, and this one. That was jump board, something we did ourselves. Our basketball goal, we had a bicycle rim that we nailed to a tree. That was the goal. How in the world we ever got, probably the boys got it for Christmas. All three of them, one ball. And we'd play basketball in the backyard with that. At some point, somebody got a bicycle, and this is while 7 of us were still at home. And the other one had gotten married, but we had the bicycle, and we'd be picking cotton, and this would be basically hoeing, and Mom would say, whoever gets out first, go to the mailbox. We lived on the lateral road. So me and my brother, just older than me, would hoe real fast to get to the bicycle. He always beat me, always. And I'd get so mad because he'd get to the bicycle first. And I'd say, Mama, he didn't even hoe his row good. Louise would have to come behind him and finish hoeing his row. So that was a good memory. I mean, even though, I'd get so mad at him, it's still a good memory when I think back at it. Another really good memory that we have is Daddy was one of these people that took everybody in. If they needed a house, hey, just come to the Nichols house. There's always room. And my aunt that she lived here for a while, the McGuffins. She lived in the Harris house. I'm not sure which, but it was right up the road from us. But once they moved out, she would come back. And she would pick cotton with us, and I always tried to get a row by her because she would sing songs and she would teach me songs. Another one of Daddy's sisters would come down here for the same reason. But then we had about 3 different people that would come through. They might have been called hobos, I'm not sure, but it seemed like they always turned up during cotton chopping or cotton picking time, and they would help either pick or chop or whatever. And guess where they slept? With the boys, I mean, there's 3 boys in the bed already, but memories like that. So it was good memories for the most part. I remember very plainly starting to school because I was only 5, and back then we didn't have kindergarten. So I went into the 1st grade at 5 years old. And so that first year, like I said, Louise took care of me, because I was the little squirt. And the other 2, they weren't quite old enough to go to school yet. And I can remember them having their play. And Louise and Maxine came to the house, and they boiled spaghetti, and that was going to be the worms that they used in this play, which JR was in. And that may have been when I fell in love with him. To me, he was just Louise's boyfriend, but I'm little, so it's okay if she shares him. And the thing then, I mean, we didn't have our texting and all that stuff, but I'd write little notes. And even when I didn't lose my lunch money, I could run by the bookstore because I knew they would be there, and I'd take him that note. And they were pretty much simple. I'd say, am I your girlfriend? And mostly it was, do you like me? I like you, that kind of thing. And he always answered it. And I would just run there and leave him the note, and maybe the next day he'd give it back to me. But for years, I kept them in a little matchbox. And I kept them in, Mama, I had a trunk. I don't know why I had a trunk. Do you know why I had a trunk? I don't know why I had a trunk. But anyway, I had a trunk with all that stuff in it. And somehow or another, that trunk got lost, and I've thought about that a whole lot. But I remember going to church with him, and I remember him singing, but I'm kind of like Louise. I don't remember anything specific that he sang, and Miss Cash would play. I remember real vividly Tommy and Joanne because they were closer to my age. Whether they remember me or not, I was still a little squirt to them, you know. And but I remember them. But JR was always my hero because he.
Was your sister's boyfriend?
Yeah, right. And even years after I got married and we moved to Houston, he came and he was signing books at one of the bookstores on there in Pasadena, and so my friend across the street and I went to that, and so we had pulled up there, you know, and I had my book ready for him to sign, and as we got up for him to sign my book, he looked at me, and he looked at me again, and I said, "Do you know Louise Nichols?" And he said, "You look just like her." And he said, and of course he asked me how she was, and he said, "Tell Louise I said hello." You know, I said, "Well, I will. I'll do that." Well, we got on through the line because you can't hold it up, and we got out, and his limo was there, and so Diane and I just kind of hung out right there by the limo. And when he came out, of course, he just grabbed me and hugged me and kissed me, and so that was cool. And he said, "Now be sure and tell Louise." He said, "You know, I really miss seeing her. You know, just general junk, nothing specific." But anyway, so we get in the car, and we're sitting there, and Diane gets in the front seat with me, and so I'm starting the car, and Diane screams bloody murder. You know, I couldn't imagine what I had done. You know, I'm looking around. I said, "What is wrong?" And she said, "I cannot believe you were just kissed by Johnny Cash, and you are so cool." And I said, "Well, you know, I never was one of these that fainted and all that kind of stuff. That just, I mean, JR was our buddy. JR was somebody I grew up with. He was another human being. He wasn't a star." But anyway.
One of the other stories that you were telling before this was you were mentioning about living on the ditch and the flooding. Can you talk a little about that quick?
That, I remember 2 times, and I don't know which time it was that some of our chickens got caught up under the house, but I remember the levee as being really high. Now, being a kid, it may not have been as high, because when we went down there today, it didn't seem very high at all. But we knew that the water was coming up and up and up, and having this little, I don't know if they called them drainage ditches, because you know each parcel of land had the little ditches throughout there. And so this big one ran in front of our house, and then it gradually got smaller as it went down. But as the water came up, it was a great time to fish, because we'd go out there and fish, you know. But then these 2 times it just kept coming up and coming up. And it probably was not even knee high. It did not get in the house. Either time it did not get in the house. But Daddy had a boat, a John boat. And so the way he parked the car on that lateral road, there was his shop where he sharpened his plows and all this kind of stuff. Well, that's where he always parked the truck. And so he'd come up in the boat and get us, and he'd take us out to the truck in the boat, and then we'd drive to church or wherever, or to Center. I mean, we just called it Center. I don't know if they still do that or not, but that happened twice in the 14 years or 13 years that I lived here.